15 Most Disturbing Serial Killers, according to Reddit. Number 15. H. Holmes. Many of these appear to just be names, so I guess we'll be reading through the articles together. Herman Webster Mudgett, born May 16, 1861, is regarded as America's first documented serial killer. He opened up a hotel, and it became something of a dungeon. He confessed to around 27 murders, but the body count could have been up to 200. Holmes arrived in Chicago in August 1886 and came across Elizabeth S. Holton's drugstore at the northwest corner of South Wallace Avenue and West 63rd Street in the Englewood neighborhood. Holton gave Holmes a job, and he proved himself to be a hard-working employee. After the death of Holton's husband, Holmes offered to buy the drugstore from Holton, and she agreed. Holmes purchased the store mainly with funds obtained by mortgaging the store's fixtures and stock, the loan to be repaid in substantial monthly installments of $100, worth $2,600 in 2015. Holton was never seen or heard from again, and whenever any regular customers asked Holmes about her whereabouts after she sold the drugstore to him, he would say that she moved to California to be with close relatives. Holmes purchased an empty lot across from the drugstore where he built his 3-story, block-long hotel building. Because of its enormous structure, local people dubbed it the Castle. The building was 162 feet long and 50 feet wide. The address was 601-603 West 63rd Street. It was called the World's Fair Hotel and opened as a hostelry for the World's Columbian Exposition in 1893, with part of the structure devoted to commercial space. The ground floor of the castle contained Holmes' own relocated drugstore and various shops, while the upper 2 floors contained his personal office and a labyrinth of rooms with doorways opening to brick walls, oddly angled hallways, stairways leading to nowhere, doors that could only be opened from the outside, and a host of other strange and deceptive constructions. Holmes was constantly firing and hiring different workers during the construction of the castle, claiming that they were doing incompetent work. His actual reason was to ensure that he was the only one who fully understood the design of the building. During the period of the building construction in 1889, Holmes met and became friends with Benjamin Pitezel, a carpenter with a criminal past. He used Pitezel as his right-hand man for his criminal schemes. A district attorney later described Pitezel as Holmes's tool, his creature. After the completion of the hotel, Holmes selected mostly female victims from among his employees, many of them whom required as a condition of the employment to take out life insurance policies, for which Holmes would pay them premiums, but was also the beneficiary, as well as his lovers and hotel guests whom he would later kill. Some were locked in soundproof bedrooms fitted with gas lines that let him asphyxiate them at any time. Some victims were taken to one of the rooms on the 2nd floor called the secret hanging chamber, where Holmes hung them. Other victims were locked in huge soundproof bank vaults near his office, where they were left to suffocate. There was also a secret room that was completely sealed by solid brick that could only be entered through a trap door in the ceiling. Holmes would lock his victims in this room for days to die of hunger and thirst. He also invented a unique alarm system and installed it on all the doors on the upper floor to alert him whenever anybody was walking around in the hotel. The victims' bodies were put inside either a secret metal chute or a dummy elevator which led to the basement, where some were meticulously dissected, stripped of flesh, crafted into skeleton models, and then sold to medical schools, well, as long as nothing went to waste. Holmes also buried some of the bodies in the lime pits for disposal. Holmes had 2 giant furnaces used to incinerate some of the bodies or evidence, as well as pits of corrosive acid, bottles of various poisons, and even a stretching rack. Though the connections he had gained in medical school, he sold skeletons and organs with little difficulty. One victim was his mistress, Julia Smythe. She was the wife of Ned Connor, who had moved into Holmes's building and began working at his pharmacy's jewelry counter. Holmes began an affair with Smythe. After Connor found out about the affair, he quit his job and moved away, leaving Smythe and her daughter, Pearl, behind. Smythe gained custody of Pearl and remained at the hotel, continuing her affair with Holmes. In 1891, Smythe told Holmes that she was pregnant with his baby and demanded marriage. Holmes agreed to marry her, but told her that they could not have a child. He then suggested performing an abortion, and she agreed. The abortion was planned for Christmas Eve. Holmes murdered Smythe by overdosing her with chloroform and later killed Pearl. When confronted by a tenant in the building who questioned the whereabouts of Smythe and her daughter, Holmes said that they had left for Iowa to attend a family wedding. After Christmas, Holmes hired a man named Charles Chappell to articulate Smythe's skeleton. Holmes introduced himself to Chappell as Henry Gordon and took him to one of the rooms on the 2nd floor to show him the body. After some discussion, they agreed that Chappell would put the arms in a bag and take them home to articulate them, and Holmes would do the rest of the body. After Chappell arrived home with the arms, Holmes and another man, possibly Peitzel, showed up at the door and gave him the rest of the body, which had been cut into 2 pieces. Holmes later hired Chappell again and took him to the same room, this time to process the body of a man. The 3rd job was for the body of another woman, and after Chappell finished the 3rd skeleton, Holmes refused to pay the money he owed him due to some financial trouble. Chappell then refused to give Holmes back the skeleton and kept it inside his home. After Holmes was caught and his crimes became public, Chappell cooperated with the police and gave them the skull for examination. The room where Holmes kept the 3 bodies was later established by investigators as the Room of the 3 Corpses. Holmes met a railroad heiress named Minnie Williams. What's a railroad heiress? People who may be listening and don't understand that. Well, back in the day in America, the niggas who built the railroads were pretty wealthy motherfuckers, because that was pretty much the only means of transportation back in those days. So anybody linked to railroads, they had a lot of money. So when Holmes met this heiress named Minnie Williams while on a business trip in Boston, he introduced himself as Henry Gordon. They started dating and then entered into a relationship, and although Holmes had to return to Chicago, he kept in touch with Williams and sent her love letters. In February 1893, she moved to Chicago and contacted Holmes. He offered her a job at the hotel as his personal stenographer, and she accepted. After rekindling their relationship, Holmes was able to pursue Williams to transfer the deed to her property in Fort Worth, Texas, to a man named Alexander Bond, an alias of Holmes. In April 1893, Williams transferred the deed, with Holmes serving as the notary. Holmes later signed the deed over to Peitzel, giving him the alias Benton T. Lyman. After proposing to Williams, Holmes encouraged her to invite her sister Annie to Chicago, and she accepted the invitation. Holmes eventually started a friendship with Annie and gave her a personal tour of the hotel. While working in his office, Holmes asked Annie to go inside his office vault to get a file for him. While she was inside the vault, Holmes locked her inside and turned on the gas line that led to the vault, killing her. At about the same time, Minnie Williams also vanished. Well, I know you guys are looking for a happy ending, so let's just find when this guy was, caught and killed. Or, imprisoned, whatever. Holmes sat in prison in Philadelphia after confessing to the insurance scam. In October 1895, Holmes was put to trial for the murder of Benjamin Pitezel, his partner in crime. He was found guilty and sentenced to death. By then, it was evident that Holmes had also murdered Pitezel's children. He then confessed to 30 more murders. On May 7, 1896, Holmes was hanged at Moyamensing Prison, also known as Philadelphia County Prison. We could be here all day if I don't get on to another fucking person. Number 14. Let's try that again. Number 14. The Toy Box Killer. David Parker Ray. It always gets stuffy when I'm trying to read these. David Parker Ray, born November 6th, 1939, also known as the Toy Box Killer, was a suspected American serial killer and known torturer of women. Though no bodies were found, he was accused by his accomplices of killing several people and suspected by police to have murdered as many as 60 from Arizona and New Mexico while living in Elephant Butte. That's a place in New Mexico. Funny, right? Ray sexually tortured and presumably killed his victims in a $100,000 homemade torture chamber he called his toy box that he built out of an old mobile home and equipped with what he referred to as his friends: whips, chains, pulleys, straps, clamps, leg spreader bars, surgical blades, and saws. He referred to these objects as his friends. It is thought that he terrorized many women with these tools for many years while living in New Mexico, with the added assistance of multiple accomplices, allegedly including several of the women he was dating. Inside the torture room, along with numerous sex toys, torture implements, syringes, and detailed diagrams showing different methods and techniques for inflicting pain, there was a homemade electrical generator that was used for torture. A mirror was mounted in the ceiling above the gynecologist-type table he used to strap his victims to. He was been said to have wanted his victims to see everything that was being done to them during the torture sessions. Ray would often have a recorded audio tape of himself playing for his victims whenever they regained consciousness. Wild. He would force them all to watch a video. Pretty scary stuff. Somebody says, every time I think about it, it really gets into my head and I can't stop thinking about how fucked up it is. He played the girls he captured a tape describing what to expect during their stay. Read the transcript. It's crazy. He allowed his dogs to rape the women while his friends drank beer and watched them. But an interesting note is that he didn't kill all of his victims. He brainwashed them, and some made it back into society with just a 3 to 6 month hole in their memory. Fucking using and torturing a woman for 3 to 6 months. Multiple women. What a crazy life some people are living. And people call me a bad guy. While his friends drank beer and watched, says another user. I think it's maybe the most scary part. How is it possible that someone like him was able to find several accomplices? It's called the internet, motherfucker. But then again, back in those days, I'd like to believe that everybody was 10 times sicker than, they pretended to be for society's sake. Just because people are smiling at you and act like they understand how things work socially doesn't mean that they're not the sickest motherfucker in the world. He was telling people what he's doing and they're like, oh cool, can I join? Somebody responds, "That's what I don't understand either. How do these people find each other?" Nigga, how do you find other basic ass losers to fucking hang out with is the real question. Because places that you and I drive past and go, "I'd never go there," is where people like them hang. And when you hang out in fucked up places with fucked up people, shit tends to escalate. Maybe it started as a "wanna see what I got" type thing. Let's move on here. Number 13. The ones that are out there right now, the ones that we don't know about doing fucked up shit, is more disturbing than those who are caught/dead. Hey, it's me, says somebody. I love that. Oh God. Nose is getting so stuffy, I don't understand. And it was fine before I started recording, so that one doesn't really count, does it? Number 13, Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy, Ted Bundy, Ted Bundy. Boom. Theodore Robert Bundy was an American serial killer, kidnapper, rapist, and necrophile. Let's say that one more time. Serial killer, kidnapper, rapist. These are all things you're familiar with. And necrophile. That one means he fucks dead people. You find a corpse and you fuck it. You know what I mean? It's actually quite a feat, dude. Corpse isn't producing fluids. It's not a moist thing. Though you guys are trying to hear that word in a creepy video. It's not a moist thing. A corpse is not moist, meaning the orifices in a corpse are not good to go, to coin vernacular here. Yeah. You already know the horror of trying to, penetrate something when it's not adequately lubed. So, fuck me, man. And then because it's a corpse, you're doing some damage. You know what I mean? That body's like caving in while you're applying pressure to it and all kind of shit. It's pretty insane stuff. Pretty insane stuff. He assaulted and murdered numerous young women during the 1970s and possibly earlier. He's one of these charismatic killers. Look at that guy. He's not a bad-looking guy. Shortly before his execution, after more than a decade of denials, he confessed to 30 homicides committed in 7 states between 1974 and 1978. The true victim count remains unknown and could be much higher. Bundy was regarded as handsome and charismatic by many of his young female victims, traits he exploited to win their trust. He typically approached them in public places, feigning injury or disability, or impersonating an authority figure before overpowering and assaulting them at more secluded locations. He sometimes revisited his secondary crime scenes for hours at a time, grooming and performing sexual acts with the decomposing corpses until putrefaction. Let's go ahead and look up that word. Putrefaction is the 5th stage of death. You don't even want to know about them previous 4, baby. Following pallor mortis, algor mortis, rigor mortis, and livor mortis. The process references the breaking down of a human or animal post-mortem, meaning after death. In broad terms, it can be viewed as the decomposition of proteins and the eventual breakdown of the cohesiveness between tissues. I said this. That body is caving in under you. Liquefaction of most of the organs. This is caused by the decomposition of organic matter by bacterial or fungal digestion. This body is decomposing and breaking down before you. Okay? You're somewhere between a solid and a liquid. You're getting into that gross mushy nushy. Talking about that. Wait a minute. Anyway, he decapitated at least 12 of his victims and kept some of the severed heads in his apartment for a period of time as mementos. On a few occasions, he simply broke into dwellings at night and bludgeoned the victims as they slept. Initially incarcerated in Utah in 1975 for aggravated kidnapping and attempted criminal assault, Bundy became a suspect in a progressively longer list of unsolved homicides in multiple states. Facing murder charges in Colorado, he engineered 2 dramatic escapes and committed further assaults. 2 motherfuckers. He escaped from jail twice. Oh boy. That's not even the crimes here. So where's the university years? Come on now. First of two series. Look, man, we'd be reading this shit for a day. Oh my god. Let's see. The escapes. This nigga was wild. I don't think it gets wilder than Bundy. That's a hell of a life, man. That is a life living, doing exactly what you want to do. Fuck all this shit. He even jumped through the hoops of school. He even jumped through them corny ass society hoops. That's probably what fucked him up so hard. Y'all are making people do too many weird things in your life, and some of them are not adjusted or prepared for that shit. Let's read this. There's no consensus on when or where Bundy began killing women. He told different stories to different people and refused to divulge into the specifics of his earlier crimes, even as he confessed in graphic detail to the dozens of later murders in the days preceding his execution. He told Nelson that he attempted his first kidnapping in 1969, but did not kill anyone until sometime in 1971 in Seattle. He told a psychologist that he killed 2 women in Atlantic City in 1969 while visiting family in Philadelphia. To homicide detective, he hinted at a murder in Seattle in 1972. And, Jesus Christ, the list goes on. Circumstantial evidence suggests that he abducted and killed an 18-year-old Anne Marie Burr. Jesus Christ, an 8-year-old? Oh, when he was 14, so I guess it's not that bad, Kyle? Why did I say oh like that? You better make yourself seem normal to these people. But if there are subscribers, they already know you're not normal, Kyle. You're not getting anywhere. Shortly after midnight on January 4th, 1974, around the time that he terminated his relationship with Brooks, Bundy entered a basement apartment of 18-year-old Karen Sparks, a dancer and a student at UW. After bludgeoning the sleeping woman senseless with a metal rod from her bed frame, he sexually assaulted her with either the same rod or a metal spectrum. Oh, so a corpse is good enough to stick your dick in, but you'd rather penetrate this chick with a rod? At least that meat's still fresh. This list is probably getting too much for somebody. But you know what? For the other people, it's right up their alley, causing extensive internal injuries. She remained unconscious for 10 days, but survived with no memory of the assault and permanent brain damage. Jesus Christ, what a shame. Better to kill her. Less than a month later, in early morning hours of February 1, Bundy broke into the basement room of Linda Ann Healy, a UW undergraduate who broadcast morning radio weather reports for skiers. He beat her unconscious, dressed her in blue jeans, a white blouse, and boots, and carried her away. Female college students continued disappearing at a rate of about 1 per month. On March 12th, Donna Gail Manson, a 19-year-old student at the Evergreen State College in Olympia, 60 miles southwest of Seattle, left her dormitory for a jazz concert campus but never arrived. On April 17th, Susan Elaine, the list goes on, nigga, the list goes on, Susan Elaine. 2 female Central Washington students later came forward to report encounters. On May 6th, Roberta Kathleen Parks. On June 1st, Brenda Carol Ball. What the fuck? It's profound. Y'all niggas want to live in a world where you believe that the police has your back, nigga. Don't let it happen to you like it happened to me. Okay? It's a shame. When you go to jail for something that you are not guilty of and you realize your freedom's been stripped of you, you live a life with your eyes open now. You're not behind that veil anymore. We live in a plutocracy. The law is in favor of the people with fucking money, and if you don't have that, then you're gonna get fucked. And these people were just dropping. Don't think this shit doesn't happen right now. Let's move on with this list here. John Wayne Gacy. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. We're gonna be doing this shit all day. How long is this video right now? It's only 24 minutes, Kyle. Can't tap out yet. So John Wayne Gacy, ladies and gentlemen. also known as the Killer Clown. You've heard of this guy. You've seen the documentaries on these guys. He was an American serial killer and rapist who sexually assaulted and murdered at least 33 teenage boys. He was doing the boy thing, okay? Is that creepier for you guys? He was fucking them little boys, alright? He'd dress up like a clown. He was charismatic, too. He was also moving up the rungs of the political. He had some... I think he met a president or something. Did Gacy meet a president? Let's see. Gacy... president. Oh no, he met the wife of the president. Okay. Yep, there's a picture. There's a picture of John Wayne Gacy with a picture of the president's wife right there. Pretty intense. Pretty intense. Pretty intense. Wow. Well, all of Gacy's known murders were committed inside of his Norwood Park, Illinois home. Gacy buried 26 of his victims in the crawl space of his home. 3 further victims were buried elsewhere on his property. He was convicted of 33 murders. But can we get into that home? You know what I mean? Can we get into what was going on inside there? I don't want to hear about parole and how he was a great businessman and was moving up through the rungs of society. Yeah, I think that's the greatest part about John Wayne Gacy is you got to understand. As far as society was concerned, he was a great upstanding gentleman. A great upstanding gentleman. We should get into some shit though. The murder of Timothy McCoy. On January 2nd, 1972, Gacy picked up a 16-year-old Timothy Jack McCoy from Chicago's Greyhound bus terminal. Gacy took McCoy, who was traveling from Michigan to Omaha, on a sightseeing tour of Chicago, and then drove him to his home with the promise that he could spend the night and be driven back to the station in time to catch his bus. Gacy later said that he awoke the following morning to find McCoy standing in his bedroom doorway with a kitchen knife in his hand. Gacy leapt from his bed, and McCoy raised both his arms in a gesture of surrender, tilting the knife upwards and accidentally cutting Gacy's forearm. Gacy had a scar on his arm to support his claim. Gacy twisted the knife from McCoy's hand, banged his head against the bedroom wall, kicked him against his wardrobe, and walked towards him. McCoy then kicked him in the stomach, and Gacy grabbed the youth, wrestled him to the floor, and then stabbed him repeatedly in the chest as he straddled him with his body. Gacy claims he then went to his kitchen and saw an open carton of eggs and a slab of unsliced bacon on his kitchen table. McCoy had also set the table for 2. He walked into the room to wake him, absent-mindedly carrying the kitchen knife in his hand. Gacy subsequently buried McCoy in his crawl space and later covered the youth's grave with a layer of concrete. This is how it began. Think about the number 30. It's not a small number when you're talking about killing people. You kill one guy, holy shit. You kill another, goddamn. You kill a third, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15, nigga. 15 people you've killed 15 people. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Like it's easy. You don't feel anything at this point. You can't be caught because you would have been caught at this point. They reach a high where they feel invincible. And I guess that's what he was. The only reason he got caught was because, well, he kidnapped the wrong motherfucker. And people were looking for this motherfucker. In an interview after his arrest, Gacy stated that immediately after killing McCoy, he felt totally drained, yet noted that he had experienced an orgasm as he killed the youth. In the 1980s, sorry, I'm just responding to this. In the 1980s, in an interview, he added, "That's when I realized that death was the ultimate thrill." I'm gonna mute this thing. The second known victim, Gacy later stated, was around January 1974. The victim was an unidentified teenage youth with medium brown curly hair, estimated to be the age of between 14 and 18, whom Gacy strangled before stowing the youth's body in the closet prior to burial. Gacy later stated that the fluid leaked out of the youth's mouth and nose as he was stored in the closet, staining his carpet. Ugh. As a result of his experience, Gacy later stated he regularly stuffed cloth rags in the victim's own underwear in their... What? Oh, Gacy later stored cloth in the victim or the victim's own underwear in their mouths to prevent a reoccurrence of this incident. This particular unidentified victim was buried about 15 feet from the barbecue pit in Gacy's backyard. The handcuff trick. These are some scary stories right here. I don't even know how to package this list because it's probably going to be the most real list I've ever fucking made. Because this shit happened. This ain't your dog and pony show that fucking creepypasta faggot bitch stories written by some Reddit 14-year-old because I'm 14 and this is deep.
And then I walked into the kitchen and I saw something and the kitchen door was open and now it was closed. But it wasn't closed before.
The handcuff trick. By 1975, Gacy's business was expanding rapidly. Ooh, he's doing that adult thing well. You know what I'm talking about? He's living that life. A respectable man. By his own later admission, he began working 12 and 16-hour days to fulfill agreed commitments upon an increasing number of contracts. Gacy also freely admitted that 1975 was also the year in which he began to increase the frequency of his excursions for sex with young boys. Gacy would often refer to these jaunts as cruising for little dude booty to kill him. Much of the labor workforce of the PDM contractors consisted of high school students and young men. One of these youths was a 15-year-old named Anthony Antonucci, whom Gacy had hired in May 1975. So a lot of the boys he getting to work with him are his potential victims. In July 1975, Gacy arrived at the youth's home, and while the youth was alone, having injured his foot at work the day prior, Gacy plied the youth with alcohol, wrestled him to the floor, and cuffed Antonucci's hands behind his back. The cuff upon Antonucci's wrist was loose. Antonucci freed his arm from the handcuff after Gacy left the room. When Gacy returned, Antonucci, a member of his high school wrestling team, pounced on him. The youth wrestled Gacy to the floor, obtained possession of the handcuff key, and cuffed Gacy's hand behind his back. Gacy screamed threats, then calmed down and promised to leave if Antonucci removed the handcuffs. The youth agreed. Do you know what you're doing? And Gacy left the house. Antonucci later recalled that Gacy had told him as he lay on the floor, "Not only are you the only one who got out of the cuffs, you got them on me." 1 week after the attempted assault on Antonucci on July 29, 1975, another of Gacy's employees, a 17-year-old John Butkovich, disappeared. The day before his disappearance, Butkovich had threatened Gacy or 2 weeks outstanding back pay. Oh, he wasn't getting his money. This boy wasn't getting paid. Gacy later admitted to luring Butkovich to his home while his wife and stepchildren were visiting his sister in Arkansas. You 17 years old and you got a wife? You better than me, man. Ostensibly to settle the issue of Butkovich's overdue wages, Gacy conned the youth into cuffing his wrists behind his back, then strangled him to death and buried his body under the concrete floor of his garage. Gacy later admitted to having sat on the kid's chest for a while before killing him. Butkovich's Dodge sedan was found abandoned in a parking lot with the youth's wallet inside and keys still in the ignition. Butkovich's father called Gacy, who claimed he was happy to help search for the youth, but was sorry Butkovich had run away. Gacy was questioned about Butkovich's disappearance and admitted that the youth and two friends had arrived at the apartment demanding Butkovich's overdue pay, but claimed all three youths had left after a compromise had been reached. Over the following 3 years, Butkovich's parents called the police more than 100 times, urging them to investigate Gacy further. This is what you got to think about as well. For every one victim, there's potentially 2 parents. Calling the police, begging them to get off they sloppy, donut eating, fucking racist and corrupt asses to do something about some of the shit that's going down. And nah, your kid's bad, so he probably ran away, you know. No, your kid likes to date around, so she's probably a slut, you know. She's probably selling a body on the corner and all kind of shit. And all this shit goes down. And these families have to live with the lack of peace that comes with knowing that nobody has their back, homie. The authority is paid to be the authority. You're dealing with people who are not doing their job. So it's funny that the cops basically get away with it. Pretty much because they're walking around with guns, even though they are not psychologically what anybody who should be carrying a firearm. But you're dealing with these police, right? And they get a free pass. But if you were to go to like a store right now, if you were to go to a store and say, hey, what aisle is this in? And somebody says, I don't know. Okay, that's fine. You go to a register and the teller is at the register and they don't know how to key in your bullshit. You know what I mean? All right, that's cool. You know what I mean? You go to a fast food restaurant and you ask for a specific order and, you know, you don't get the shit the way that you ordered it just now, homie. And you paying for that shit. Sometimes you're ordering shit and it's not in a bag when you get out there. Nigga, you getting paid for this shit. That's cool. I get it. It's minimum wage. I get it. You don't give a fuck, man. You call somebody because you need some technical support on what's going on with your cable bills or your fucking equipment that ain't working the way that it was supposed to be working, or something that you ordered is just not what was advertised. No man's sky. And you're getting people that essentially don't want to do the job they're being paid to do. How is that fine? But that's the police. So I guess that rant's over. And I guess we're done talking about Gacy. Because this guy, the cruising years, this is going to be scary. It's probably just going to be a list of all the niggas he killed. Daryl Sampson, an 18-year-old boy. 15-year-old Randall Reffett. 14-year-old Samuel Stapleton. 17-year-old Michael Bonin. A 16-year-old named William Carroll. I'm reading a list of dead boys that this man, John Wayne Gacy, killed, sexually assaulted, and then buried in a crawl space under his house. Think about that. Think about the number reaching. Think about the number reaching 30. Think about that number. Ain't that some shit? I want to see that crawl space.
Kids entertainer. Young men, all victims.
Who is this guy?
Someone who appeared so normal.
Young men, victims. And then they're playing the Requiem for a Dream shit in the background. Man, what a tacky list this is. What a tacky list. Creepy shit, man. They just bringing out the bodies over and over.
Even the psychiatric experts who
That's what I want, is a video of them just bringing out more and more bodies, more bodies, more bodies. Look how many people like are affected by the lives of these assholes, but we're not getting anywhere on this list, so we should get somewhere together, baby, yeah. Get somewhere together, baby, yeah. Hopefully this is loud enough for you to hear me over the music. The music sounds kind of loud, but we'll be fine. Somebody says that we have a serial killer working Phoenix right now who gets your attention before he shoots you. It seems he wants to see the fear in your face. I miss the old serial killers who would just pop you in the back of the head and keep moving. Well, damn. Well, damn. The hell is this? Someone I didn't see mentioned is Jane Topan, a nurse turned serial killer, but not an Angel of Mercy style where she's just, injecting you and then you pass out. She wanted to make people suffer, and she got off sexually on that. She would experiment with drugs, shoot up her patients, and then climb into bed with them and masturbate against them, and probably worse. But it was the 1800s, so it wasn't reported, as they were dying. Once she was kicked out of hospital, she went on to murder a whole family for whom she worked as a private nurse. She confessed to 33 murders, but probably killed far more. Belle Gunness is pretty scary too. Not so much for her motives and her methods, which are pretty basic. Lure Scandinavian guys from her homeland to her farm in Indiana, kill them with an axe and take their money they'd brought thanks to her Lonely Hearts ad. But the fact that after she was suspected, her farm burned down and they found a body of a woman and Belle's children. Except it wasn't Belle, because she was a large woman and the body was much smaller and probably the maid. Nobody knows what happened to her after that. She disappeared. Nice. How about Vlado Taneski? He was a journalist covering the crime beat in Macedonia who killed little old women. And then wrote about their murders for his newspaper. Oh, it's like Spider-Man, but with murders. For anybody who doesn't understand that reference, you should be ashamed of yourself, but I'm a nice guy. So Spider-Man famously was a boy named Peter Parker who worked for a newspaper where he would get great shots of Spider-Man, but that's because he was Spider-Man. So he'd basically just put the outfit on and then take pictures of himself. And, I'm saying this is like the Spider-Man of murder, because the guy would murder the people and then write stories like, can you believe this person was murdered? You won't believe these juicy That additional element, I feel, makes him even more disturbing, even after the methodology isn't the startling compared to some of the others we've listed. It takes a seriously fucked up mind to plan all of that just to have something to write about. Teresa Knorr, who murdered 2 of her children, has always disturbed me. She had 2 boys and 3 girls. She shot her oldest girl in the back in a fit of rage when the girl wanted to run away. The girl survived for a few years, but kept on being abused, so wanted to leave. Nor agreed to let her leave if she dug the bullet out without surgery or anesthesia. Unsurprisingly, her daughter lost her mind from this. She was tied to the table and kept on the floor, and eventually lapsed into a coma. Noor and her sons drove the comatose girl out to the highway and lit her on fire, leaving her remains in a box. The second girl was shut up in a closet for days on end, locked in there nonstop, and lost her mind as well. You should read, literally, this is the only thing that I'm telling you that you should go watch a documentary on Teresa Knorr. I actually think I remember it being something like this bitch was jealous of her daughters for being prettier than her or some shit like that. And not that that makes it any better or any more worth watching, but women are fucking crazy. And as awful as moms are, sometimes you gotta be glad that you made it this far, because some of these bitches are crazy. Some of these bitches are crazy, and they're the last people who, there's no test for being a mom. You just find a dick, get it in you, get some shit pumped into you, and then bam, you got a baby. You know what I mean? There's no test that these bitches are passing. They're not going places and going, no, you shouldn't have a baby. There are meth addicts and crack addicts and people out there right now who are having a baby and getting to keep that baby. And sometimes they'll even get the ability to keep that baby over some, man that's more well-adjusted, because the women get priority. Women can send men to jail on just a word. They can get custody, without really having to do anything. It's a woman's world right now, and that's pretty scary. But, hopefully as time progresses, we'll change some shit. It's pretty fucked up. The second girl was shut up in a closet for days on end, locked in there nonstop, and lost her mind as well. She was starved and driven mad, and disposed of similarly, with the two boys pressed into helping mom again. The third daughter survived and saw her mom brought to justice, but died young due to cancer. No less. What the fuck? You really got to go read up on Teresa Noor. We should really just kick this fucking list off. Like, I'm losing my mind here, and my ear is killing me as well, which is weird. Talking about the Zodiac Killer. Zodiac's just another fucking madman serial killer. But the thing about the Zodiac was that he was really making fun of the police. This guy was taunting the police, just taunting them, and they never caught him. We look up the Zodiac Killer, we'll see like a sketch, because we don't know what the hell that thing looks like. Yeah, I'll joke about Ted Cruz being a Zodiac Killer, but this guy's a pretty scary motherfucker. Zodiac Killer was a serial killer who operated in Northern California in the late 1960s and early 1970s. The killer's identity remains unknown. The Zodiac murders victims in Venecia, Vallejo, Lake Berryessa, and San Francisco between 1968 and October 1969. 4 men and 3 women between the ages of 16 and 29 were targeted, and the killer originated the name Zodiac in a series of taunting letters sent to the local Bay Area press. The letters were basically including a lot of crazy shit that made them necessary to be deciphered. Like, this guy was nuts. This guy was like smart. And what a shame. Lake Herman Road attack. The first murders were widely attributed to the Zodiac Killer. Were the shooting of high school student Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday. The couple were on their first date and planned to attend a Christmas concert at Hogan High School, about 3 blocks from Jensen's home. The couple instead visited a friend before stopping at a local restaurant and then driving out to Lake Herman Road. At about 10:15, Faraday parked his mother's Rambler in a gravel turnout, which was a well-known lover's lane. It's a shame we don't have designated lover's lanes, bro. Jeez. Shortly after 11 p.m., their bodies were found by Stella Borges, who lived nearby. The Solano County Sheriff's Department investigated the crime, but no leads developed. Utilizing available forensics data, Robert Graysmith postulated that another car pulled into the turnout just prior to 11 p.m. and parked beside the couple. The killer apparently exited the second car and walked towards the Rambler, possibly ordering the couple out of the Rambler. Jensen appeared to have exited the car first, yet when Faraday was halfway out, the killer apparently shot Faraday in the head. Fleeing from the killer, Jensen was gunned down 28 feet from the car with 5 shots through her back. The killer then drove off. Blue Rock Springs attack. Just before midnight on July 4th, 1969, Darlene Farrell and Michael McGew drove into the Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, 4 miles from the Lake Herman Road murder site, and parked. While the couple sat in the Farrens' car, a second car drove into the lot and parked alongside them, but almost immediately drove away. Returning about 10 minutes later, the second car parked behind them. The driver of the second car then exited the vehicle, approached the passenger side door of Farron's car carrying a flashlight and a 9mm Luger. The killer directed the flashlight into McGew's face and Farron's eyes before shooting at them, firing 5 times. Both victims were hit, and several bullets had passed through McGew into Farron. The killer walked away from the car, but upon hearing McGew's moaning, returned and shot each victim twice more. before driving off. Damn. On July 5th, 1969, a man phoned the Vallejo Police Department to report and claim responsibility for the attack. The caller also took credit for the murders of Jensen and Faraday, and the police traced the call to a phone booth at a gas station at the Springs Road in Tuolumne, about 3/10 of a mile from Farron's home and only a few blocks from the Vallejo Police Department. Farron was pronounced dead at the hospital, but McGee survived the attack despite being shot in the face, neck, and chest. Was Magoo why they had a fucking sketch of the guy? Letters from the Zodiac. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest. Because man is the most dangerous game of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise. And then I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or atop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife. The solution of the Zodiac's 408 symbol cipher. What the fuck? What the fuck? And he kept communicating with the police, man. What a wild man. What a wild man, what a wild man, what a wild man, what a wild man. We're nowhere near the end and my ear is killing me here. Why don't we just split this into two fucking lists? Because this has been going on for an hour. So I'm gonna split this into like a part 1 and part 2. And we'll go from there. I'll see you in the next one. And I hope you've had a sexually chilling day. I hope you've had a sexually chilling day. Who is this guy?